Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow.
Welcome, everybody, to Washington, D.C. We're at the steps of the Supreme Court of the United States for this very special program. Let me tell you something. I've walked up these steps a lot. I've argued a dozen cases at the Supreme Court of the United States in defense of religious liberty. There is a vacancy at the Supreme Court right now with the passing of Justice Antonin Scalia. By the way, Justice Scalia ruled with us every single time in every religious freedom case we had, whether it was prayer and Bible studies in schools, whether it was on the pro-life issue. Justice Scalia was always with us. Now, there's been a vacancy with his death, and now we have a replacement, a nominee, Judge Neil Gorsuch from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit, an ardent defender of religious freedom and religious liberty. On this broadcast today, we're going to be talking with senators that are in charge of the confirmation process for this new justice to the Supreme Court of the United States, and we're going to talk about the central role of the Supreme Court of the United States and as it relates to the issues of religious freedom, religious liberty, the ability to worship, the issue of life. All of those issues will be discussed with members of the United States Senate, both in our offices and in theirs. So we're going to be going from the steps of the Supreme Court of the United States to our offices 1 block away from here to the Capitol to discuss all of these critical issues. Let's go to the first interview. Senator Graham, we have been friends for a long time. We have appreciated your leadership on so many issues. I want to start with everybody in Washington, of course, first talking about the Supreme Court of the United States, the nomination of Judge Gorsuch. A lot of people in the faith community have been concerned that although some results out of the Supreme Court on the faith issues have been good over the last couple of years, to get them there has been such a difficult time. And there's a sense that there is been an attack on religious liberty and religious freedom. I know this is something you're concerned about. We now have a nominee to the Supreme Court. How big do you see this issue of religious liberty as it plays out in the Supreme Court right now?
Well, he's the chief author of the opinion that was eventually adopted by the Supreme Court. I mean, Judge Gorsuch understands that there are limits as to what the government can do to compel an employer or a person in business to act outside their faith, and he is the primary author of that concept. So if you are worried about religious liberty, then you ought to be jumping up and down and dancing over Judge Gorsuch being nominated.
What do you expect is going to happen in the nomination process? I mean, I was showing you the pictures from the last time we did this a number of years ago.
What I expect from Washington?
Yeah. What do you expect? What are we going to see?
Well, I think we're going to get him confirmed without having to change the filibuster rule. We were sitting here about Judge Roberts, but we're also sitting here about Sotomayor and Kagan.
Right.
I got beat up pretty good because I understand people are frustrated. The pro-life community wants to get pro-life judges.
Sure.
The way you do that is win the election. You can't expect a pro-choice president to pick pro-life judges. So you were there with me saying, listen, the question is qualifications.
Yep.
Sotomayor and Kagan, I would not have chosen either one, but I thought they were qualified.
Right. They met the standard, the ABA standards. They met the standards. Even though I disagree with a lot of their opinions, right? That doesn't mean they not qualify.
But elections matter. And
right.
1 in 5 people in this election cycle voted based on the Supreme Court. Donald Trump and I have disagreed, but on this we're absolutely one. It is everybody says baseball home run. It is an 80-yard touchdown pass. It is the best choice. As a matter of fact, Vice President Pence came to ask me about advice and consent.
Sure.
Advice
Who do you
and counsel.
think it should be, right?
He's the guy I picked. I picked 3 people, and you know what? All 3 of them were being considered. So from a conservative point of view, this guy is an all-star.
Right.
So any Republican president, he should be on top of your list. And to my Democratic friends, I know you would not have chosen him, but how can you say he's not qualified?
So the issue, the talk about the filibuster and whether you have to go new, I look at it pragmatically. Yeah. The groups on the left are pressuring your Democratic colleagues to take action. Yeah. They don't have anything to really take action on.
I've been there myself.
Of course, and and I've had to be sometimes the person that tampers down the people on the right and say, no, wait a minute, this is the way the system works. But here you've got a guy that is so qualified, who has a 10, 12-year record of judicial decisions, By the way, I'm the beneficiary of one of his directly. I had a Ten Commandments case. He wrote the dissent and ended up becoming the basis of the Supreme Court case there, unanimously, all 9.
You're one of the preeminent Supreme Court lawyers in the country. You're just really smart. Isn't he pretty well universally respected?
He is. He is. No one can challenge his intellect, his writing, or his legal thought. But groups will try to muster up something. I mean, this is just the nature of it is. The filibuster issue, I cannot imagine that. I've already seen this. About 7 or 8 Democratic colleagues are already saying, no, we're going to let this vote. So you don't think we're going to run into that?
Not on this pick, because if you like Scalia, you're probably going to like Gorsuch.
Yeah.
He's in that kind of mold and very well qualified. There are at least 10 Democrats who live in states won by Trump that this would be bad politics. Now, here's the deal. Emotions are high in this country. I remember the 8 years of Obama very well. It was hard.
And especially for you, because especially on the international military side, it was very difficult for you.
Just letting our friends in Israel down, rewarding Iran, withdrawing from Iraq and Syria. So it was frustrating. So here we are. Chuck Schumer's going to have to tell the left some things that Mitch McConnell told the right. Shutting the government down to repeal Obamacare never made much sense to me while Obama was still president. That hurt us, and we eventually ended that approach, and a lot of frustrated people just wanted an outcome. What I would tell your listeners is democracy is not about an outcome, it's about a process. And the process has to work no matter who's in power. I am confident that enough Democrats will wake up politically and see this as a bad fight. If they don't, no matter what it takes, we're going to get this judge on the Supreme Court.
As we fight for the confirmation of Judge Gorsuch to the Supreme Court of the United States, groups on the left are mobilized, trying to oppose him because of his pro-life convictions, because of his defense of religious liberty and religious freedom. We need your help. We've got a petition up, hundreds of thousands have signed, but we're going to have to reach even higher. Go to aclj.org, that's aclj.org, or call us at 1-877-989-2255. It's aclj.org, or 1-877-989-2255 to add your name to a petition defending the appointment of Judge Neil Gorsuch.
President Trump has fulfilled an important campaign promise to appoint a conservative nominee to the Supreme Court in the mold of the late Justice Antonin Scalia. President Trump has kept his promise by naming Judge Neil Gorsuch of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit to replace Justice Scalia. Judge Gorsuch is immensely qualified. He has a proven constitutional conservative record, but the left has begun a scorched earth campaign to defeat him. They don't want a proven conservative on the court. They will stop at nothing. The American Center for Law and Justice is mobilizing on Capitol Hill, demanding Judge Gorsuch's immediate confirmation. Stand with us in this critical fight. Sign on to our petition to confirm Judge Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or add your name online, aclj.org.
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, you and your team have shown me great courtesy in this process, and you've entrusted me with a most solemn assignment. Standing here in a house of history and acutely aware of my own imperfections, I pledge that if I am confirmed, I will do all my powers permit to be a faithful servant of the Constitution and laws of this great country. For the last decade, I've worked as a federal judge in a court that spans 6 western states, serving about 20% of the continental United States and about 18 million people. The men and women I've worked with at every level in our circuit are an inspiration to me. I've watched them fearlessly tending to the rule of law, enforcing the promises of our Constitution, and living out daily their judicial oaths to administer justice equally to rich and poor alike. following the law as they find it, and without respect to their personal political beliefs. I think of them tonight. Of course, the Supreme Court's work is vital not just to a region of the country, but to the whole, vital to the protection of the people's liberties under law, and to the continuity of our Constitution, the greatest charter of human liberty the world has ever known. The towering judges that have served in this particular seat of the Supreme Court, including Ardent Scalia and Robert Jackson, are much in my mind at this moment. Justice Scalia was a lion of the law. Agree or disagree with him, all of his colleagues on the bench cherish his wisdom and his humor. And like them, I miss him. I began my legal career working for Byron White, the last Coloradan to serve on the Supreme Court, and the only justice to lead the NFL in rushing. He was one of the smartest and most courageous men I've ever known. When Justice White retired, he gave me the chance to work for Justice Kennedy as well. Justice Kennedy was incredibly welcoming and gracious. And like Justice White, he taught me so much. I am forever grateful. And if you've ever met Judge David Sentel, you'll know just how lucky I was to land a clerkship with him right out of school. Thank you. These judges brought me up in the law. Truly, I would not be here without them. Today is as much their day as it is mine. In the balance of my professional life, I've had the privilege of working as a practicing lawyer and teacher. I've enjoyed wonderful colleagues whose support means so much to me at this moment, as it has year in and year out. Practicing in the trial work trenches of the law, I saw too that when we judges don our robes, it doesn't make us any smarter, but it does serve as a reminder of what's expected of us. Impartiality and independence, collegiality and courage. As this process now moves to the Senate, I look forward to speaking with members from both sides of the aisle, to answering their questions and to hearing their concerns. I consider the United States Senate the greatest deliberative body in the world, and I respect the important role the Constitution affords it in the confirmation of our judges. I respect, too, the fact that in our legal order, it is for Congress and not the courts to write new laws. It is the role of judges to apply, not alter, the work of the people's representatives. A judge who likes every outcome he reaches is very likely a bad judge, stretching for results he prefers rather than those the law demands. I am so thankful tonight for my family, my friends, and my faith. These are the things that keep me grounded at life's peaks and that sustain me in its valleys. To Louise, my incredible wife and companion of 20 years, my cherished daughters who are watching on TV, and all my family and friends, I cannot thank you enough for your love and for your prayers. I could not attempt this without you. Mr. President, I am honored and I am humbled. Thank you very much.
As we fight for the confirmation of Judge Gorsuch to the Supreme Court of the United States, groups on the left are mobilized, trying to oppose him because of his pro-life convictions, because of his defense of religious liberty and religious freedom. We need your help. We've got a petition up, hundreds of thousands have signed, but we're going to have to reach even higher. Go to aclj.org, that's aclj.org, or call us at 1-877-989-2255. It's aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255 to add your name to a petition defending the appointment of Judge Neil Gorsuch.
President Trump has fulfilled an important campaign promise to appoint a conservative nominee to the Supreme Court in the mold of the late Justice Antonin Scalia. President Trump has kept his promise by naming Judge Neil Gorsuch of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit to replace Justice Scalia. Judge Gorsuch is immensely qualified. He has a proven constitutional conservative record. But the left has begun a scorched earth campaign to defeat him. They don't want a proven conservative on the court. They will stop at nothing. The American Center for Law and Justice is mobilizing on Capitol Hill, demanding Judge Gorsuch's immediate confirmation. Stand with us in this critical fight. Sign on to our petition to confirm Judge Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.
We're going to be talking with senators that are in charge of the confirmation process for this new justice to the Supreme Court of the United States. And we're going to talk about the central role of the Supreme Court of the United States and as it relates to the issues of religious freedom, religious liberty, the ability to worship, the issue of life. All of those issues will be discussed with members of the United States Senate, both in our offices and in theirs. So we're going to be going from the steps of the Supreme Court of the United States to our offices 1 block away from here to the Capitol to discuss all of these critical issues. Senator, we've got a Supreme Court nominee for the faith community. We look at so many issues that we deal with, religious liberty, religious freedom, on the pro-life side. In your perspective right now, with a nominee to the Supreme Court, we've got Neil Gorsuch out of the 10th Circuit, but let's talk first about the importance of the Supreme Court to the faith community.
Tremendously important, obviously, in every area, because they're looking at and saying, what is the law? What does it really mean? What are the protections that individuals have? The court has been historically the place where Americans can go and say, I'm not being heard, or there's a law, whether it's state or federal law, that's denying me rights. The court's the place where they can go on that. So there's been a big push among the faith community to say there are a lot of people within the federal governments and state governments pushing down on my ability to be able to practice my own conscience, practice my own faith. So that should be the safe place to go to, and I hope we can make it that way again.
We look at this cases that, and Judge Gorsuch was involved in a lot of these, Little Sisters of the Poor, where the nuns were being compelled to violate their conscience, Hobby Lobby, where a business owner was told to violate their religious conscience. Then you have the situation with Planned Parenthood, where you have the governor of the state of Utah says, you know what? We're not going to fund any additional funding to Planned Parenthood in light of these videos that came out. Of course, the videos made national news. Gorsuch was involved, Judge Gorsuch was involved in all these cases. But let's talk about the life issue first. I know that's a big one. This is where it seems to be the litmus test for those on the left. If you're pro-life, it's a disqualification.
Right.
Your view on the importance of this nominee and on the issue of life, and how big of an issue do you see the life issue both in the Senate right now and in the court?
No, it's an enormous issue for the court. Many people forget that Roe v. Wade and where we have abortion nationwide right now is not something that ever passed the legislature. It's not something that ever passed a president. That was created by the court, and the court imposed that on the rest of the nation. If we're going to turn that around, we're going to need aggressive movements from the United States and from citizens rising up and saying we want to protect the lives of children, but we'll need a court to be able to go back and look at an old decision and say we made a mistake on it. We weren't standing up for the rights of every citizen. We chose some citizens because they were small and young and denied them rights, and others we gave rights to.
You came to the Senate in a different path than a lot of people.
I did.
I think it's important for people to understand that. I mean, you have a Christian commitment, your faith commitment. Talk a little bit about that and how you ended up here playing such a pivotal role in the United States Senate. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, a little bit of an odd route for me. I was 22 years in youth ministry, and not many people say, gosh, if you really want to get to the Senate, go be a youth pastor. But that was my role for over 2 decades. I served as the director of the largest youth camp in America. It's a camp called Falls Creek. We have 51,000 students a summer that come there. So we deal with a lot of issues with families, with backgrounds, with students, and what's happening. But my faith has been extremely important to me from the age of 8 years old when I accepted Christ into my life and was forgiven of my sins. That started me on a personal journey to be able to not only learn how to walk with God, but to be able to try to practice integrity and not just say I am a Christian, but to be able to live that faith out.
So you go from youth minister to senator.
Right.
What was it? I'm sure you prayed through this, obviously. I know you're a man of faith. So what was the process like?
Yeah, my wife calls this life's greatest interruption because it's not something we ever expected. I was never in student council, was not involved in local politics at all. But in 2008, my wife and I separately and then together really sensed God was calling us to this. And we spent about 7 months struggling with that, thinking this is a little odd and insane. And it felt in some ways like an Abraham call to say, why are you calling me to go to a land I know not of? But it was very, very clear to us that this is what we were supposed to do. And after 7 months of praying it through, I said to my wife, I'm going to be an old man one day telling my grandchildren about the time I didn't follow God. If I don't do this, we have to take the risk and to be able to follow through. So did that, resigned my position, went into a run for Congress and won that race.
And here we are in the United States Senate. You know, I started out as a tax lawyer, so God has his own plans for all of us, that's for sure. Back on this issue, so now here you are at the United States Senate. You've got major issues the country's facing.
You bet.
Big issues. On the court, how important do you think it is, if you're looking at the issues that we're facing, is the direction of the Supreme Court of the United States?
Well, obviously, the Supreme Court's the one that's the interrupter of everything the legislative branch does or the executive branch does. They're the ones that raise their hands and says, no, that's in bounds or out of bounds, and it should be based on the law, not on your preferences. It's one of the things that Neil Gorsuch has stated, that if you're going to be a good judge, there are going to be times that you're not going to personally like your decision because your personal preferences don't drive it. It's what does the law say? It's one of my favorite decisions that he actually wrote on that opinion, dealing with what's called Chevron deference.
Right.
What's the role of each branch of government? What's the role of the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch? And it's his opinion that we're out of balance on that. I couldn't agree more. That the executive branch is not doing just the executive branch's job, it's doing the judicial branch's job and the legislative branch's job. And even in his statement, he said, by definition, that's tyranny.
Yeah. So let's look at we talked about the life issue. Let's talk about general religious liberty.
Sure.
This is something that I know is a passion of yours, a passion of mine. I mean, religious liberty is the fundamental issue of what makes us a unique people.
Right.
There has been tremendous pushback by the court over the last few years. We've had some good victories. I'm not going to say that we haven't, but you've had to go through a lot of process to defend the right to live your faith in public life. That's what, if you look at the Hobby Lobby case, that's really what it was about. Do you sense that we are entering a season where the religious expression, faith expression, will be received in the public square again, not just tolerated, but maybe welcomed?
I hope we're there. I don't see evidence of that yet. Our nation has always been a nation to say you can practice any faith you want to practice or practice no faith at all, and you can be received as a great American. So we don't impose faith on anyone, neither do we force anyone to be able to walk away from a faith. It's one of the great things about being elected into any elected office. There's a constitutional protection for every person to be able to still practice their own unique faith as a part of it. But the heart of, as you mentioned before, the Hobby Lobby case that Judge Gorsuch was such an integral part of, argued on this one case. Especially when the government disagrees with someone in their faith, that is especially the moment that faith should be protected. That individuals should be able to live out their faith. By faith, you live out and you honor all people. In fact, in the Christian faith that I practice and live out, there's a commandment not just to tolerate, but to love. That's a whole different level that's there. And so we have to be able to reintroduce a generation to this basic principle that you can have religious liberty and to be able to practice that in America.
Yeah, so we've got a series of cases that are going to be on the way up. You've got a new judge who will be soon a justice of the Supreme Court. What kind of pushback are you expecting? I mean, we initially saw, and it's important for everybody that's watching to understand that we initially saw what I call the usual cast of characters. Planned Parenthood, no Roe, no go. They know nothing about Gorsuch really at that point, but no Roe, no go. Then you had Nana Aaron Alliance for Justice saying, what a horrible appointment. This is a guy that, by the way, is probably one of the most qualified nominees we've had, certainly in my lifetime. But what kind of pushback what should the American people be expecting to see over the weeks ahead?
I think there'll be a tremendous amount of noise in picking apart of a lot of his opinions and saying he doesn't line up with the mainstream of what it is, or he's too extreme. He's a person that's a hater of whatever group, fill in the blank here. When you actually meet him, when you're around him, when you get a chance to read his opinions, he's actually very passionate about personal liberties. People being able to not only live out their faith, but to be able to practice their life in privacy, to be able to be protected in due process, all those basic constitutional principles. What will be interesting will be the arguments in the Senate, actually, not just the debate out in the country. When he went on to the 10th Circuit in 2006, he passed by what's called voice vote. That means it was unanimous. At the time Barack Obama was a senator, that means Barack Obama supported him. At the time Hillary Clinton was a senator, Hillary Clinton supported him. Joe Biden supported him. Chuck Schumer supported him. All these individuals supported him onto this very high court, which is the 10th Circuit, handling a lot of appeals coming up to them, and a lot of big cases. So he was widely supported by people as being a very fair judge that would walk through the process. It will be difficult for some of those individuals to say, I thought he was fair before, but I saw his opinions and he's a hater now. Because when you read his opinions, you just see someone's passionate about personal liberty.
He talked about in his speech at the White House, he mentioned his faith and the role that faith plays. Some will use that as a disqualifier, that he brought his faith into the public square. What would your response be to that?
I would say they should go to Article 6 of the Constitution, which says there's no religious test for any officer of the United States. Every individual, whether you're on the court, whether you're in the legislative branch or the executive branch, there's no religious test for them. You don't have to be a certain denomination or faith or have a faith at all. And so for those that would say that's a disqualifier, that's a personal issue for them. If they say that, it's not a constitutional issue.
Right. And the fact of the matter is I thought he did it in an eloquent way, and he talked from his heart about what it means. What do you see as the great threat to the country right now? You're dealing with this every day at the United States Senate.
I would say the biggest threat that we really face are the collapse of our families. That is a core essence of everything that we face. Our educational issues, our criminal justice issues, the attitude that's in the nation, the prevalence of the anger across the country, all boils back to families that have collapsed around the country. And one of the primary things that a lot of people can do if they want to be able to help the nation is mentor a young child, engage with a young couple that's just getting married, and to be able to help walk them through the journey. Because our nation has to relearn again how to be able to do family and how to be able to be intergenerational in that conversation.
You have, I mean, I've known you for a long time now, and I've seen you work, and I've worked with you, and we work with your team. You have hope. I mean, I see no despair. You have hope for the country. I
do. Quite frankly, I follow a God that who is sovereign, who directs the steps of all people, and with him I have a tremendous amount of hope. And even through dark, difficult days, I have a sense that God walks with us through those days. There is a difficult task to be done, and I can assure you this year will be loud and will be difficult. But you walk through that and you get the job done. So today's the new day. You go take on the new task and you try to finish that out, and then we start working on the next task.
As we fight for the confirmation of Judge Gorsuch to the Supreme Court of the United States, groups on the left are mobilized, trying to oppose him because of his pro-life convictions, because of his defense of religious liberty and religious freedom. We need your help. We've got a petition up, hundreds of thousands have signed, but we're going to have to reach even higher. Go to aclj.org, that's aclj.org, or call us at 1-877-989-2255. It's aclj.org, or 1-877-989-2255 to add your name to a petition defending the appointment of Judge Neil Gorsuch.
President Trump has fulfilled an important campaign promise to appoint a conservative nominee to the Supreme Court in the mold of the late Justice Antonin Scalia. President Trump has kept his promise by naming Judge Neil Gorsuch of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit to replace Justice Scalia. Judge Gorsuch is immensely qualified. He has a proven constitutional conservative record, but the left has begun a scorched earth campaign to defeat him. They don't want a proven conservative on the court. They will stop at nothing. The American Center for Law and Justice is mobilizing on Capitol Hill, demanding Judge Gorsuch's immediate confirmation. Stand with us in this critical fight. Sign on to our petition to confirm Judge Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or add your name online, aclj.org.